flow today will be, I'll do a quick introduction of the Gathering of Tribes, but very quick. And then I will invite Alex to introduce Travelhood and the Travelhood Camp at the Gathering of Tribes and speak a bit of why it's interesting for him to participate and how he understands the gathering, and then we'll have Q&A. So we'll hopefully, we have 45 minutes, well, 40 minutes for this session now. So let's try and be compact, Alex, half at most, half for us talking and half for questions and conversation. Is that okay with everybody?
Awesome.
So the gathering is, as it says here, 2024, September in Portugal. And it's our attempt, and it's an invitation to reinvent events and gatherings for the regenerative era, for this regenerative conscious. There's many languages that are out there, but I think of it as all of the people that are reinventing and rethinking our society. And there is so many, any part of society you look at, there's a group of people rethinking and reinventing, trying to do things better in a more human, in a more sustainable, in whatever way better means, and actually reinventing and understanding what better means is a key part of the equation. So with the gathering, we want to really bring people together across all of these different worlds of people reinventing our society, because deep work is important.
Let me sit here and listen for a meeting.
Sorry. So we're trying to really bring people together from all of these different change maker ecosystems, because deep work is important, but we can only build it. We cannot build a new society in silos. We need to create horizontal connections. And the way we're doing this with the gathering is by creating an event which is in nature. I think a lot of you are in the travel industry, so probably you have an experience and ideas of why meeting in nature has a different texture. It's different than meeting in a big city. It's a fully co-created event, so we don't have a top-down program. We invite amazing organizations like Alex and Travelhood to come, to co-create, to bring their program, but also every participant is invited to co-create and contribute to the program. I usually ask Audrey. I don't have Audrey here. Alex, what did I miss about the Gathering of Tribes?
I think the opportunity to get together with so many regenerative minds, at least for me.
Yeah, thank you. So this is a key thing, that in an event, we have the opportunity to create and for 5 days live whatever culture we dream of. So it's not likely that within our lifetimes, we lay the seeds, but it's not likely that within our lifetime, we will transform all of the global society into a more conscious, sustainable, beautiful way. But for 5 days, we can fully live the culture that we dream of because we are surrounded by like-minded souls, like you say, Alex. So that's at the gathering. Feel free to ask questions. Also, if you have questions during the, as we talk, feel free to write in the chat. I know for me, I don't like to remember things, but we'll probably pick up those questions at the end. So talking about Travelhood, which I have to say, I really love. I'm super excited, but I don't really understand it fully yet myself, Alex. So I'm really excited about this session. Can you tell us, why does Travelhood exist?
I think I also in a process of discovery of that, why does Travelhood exist and what we are doing. But I think primarily Travelhood exists because travel organizers, especially those who are locals, they are separated just because we are in different places. Right now, I'm here on the farm in the middle of Estonia, and there are not many travel organizers around me. And Travelhood is this uniting place where people can share experience, because ultimately we do not compete with each other, but we can share experiences. I have to mute somebody. Yeah, but so we can share the experience and actually help each other to grow.
Nice, beautiful. And so who is Travelhood for?
Initially, I think it's about interesting people who are locals, but who work with travelers. So these are local experience organizers, such as tour operators and people who create activities or local accommodations, etc., etc. But at the same time, I think we unite quite many people who do international work as well. So on one side, we connect local experiences, and on the other side, these are global travelers and global travel professionals.
Nice. And I think this is the amazing, and it's also what the gathering, it has that component. We live in this amazing times where we can be very local. And I think a lot of people are discovering the value of being deeply rooted in place and connected to being local, but also being global. And I think what's really beautiful is that we can connect without some centralized body, the United Nations, transferring the information in reports. We can talk village to village, local to local, globally. And I think that creates beautiful opportunities. So, yeah, so what's in it for the people joining Travelhood? What's the benefits that being part of Travelhood gives them?
I see Travelhood, it's like a toolbox for, local experience organizers. So they can build on one side more resilient business, on the other side more profitable business. That kind of goes hand in hand in this sense. And what is also important is that we aim to encourage people to create a positive impact on the places where they live and work. So something like that, right? So on one side, we care about making business better. On the other side, better business can't exist without a better place.
Nice, wonderful. And how does, with what you're developing, how does making a camp at the Gathering of Tribes fit in with Travelhood?
So I think what brought me into that, first of all, is that creating a camp is the experience by itself. So it comes to the organizing people within the camp, because as experience organizers, we do deal with, organizing people and literally organizing camps. And on the other side, it is about learning from each other. So I, as a travel professional, learn from Travelhood participants, and they also learn from each other. So I see it like, you know how GPS system works. It's like if there would be one satellite in the sky that sends a signal to your phone, it would never work in this sense. You will never understand where's your position. But it's a network of satellites that put the signal into your phone from the different directions. And by this, you understand where you are. And the same works with the group dynamics in Travelhood. So we literally just understand our place, where we are right now, and where do we move forward.
Nice, wonderful. Yeah, so I love Travelhood. To me, it feels like it has this sense of discovery and experimentation of trying to understand what it is and what the need of the people that it's inviting is. And that's exactly the spirit of the gathering. It's creating the space where it can experiment, and meeting in person, you can go so much further, so much quicker, especially those early days of discovering a vision, of understanding how something wants to go. Cool. So I think now it's time for questions. I look through the chat to start. Is the sustainable versus regenerative? Yes, it's a very interesting question. Maybe you give your answer first, Alexander, then I give mine.
It is an interesting question because it's triggers often, and it's yet have to find right words to that. But you know, for recent couple of days, and that's not a very strict opinion, but I would really want to also to hear your opinion on that. For the last couple of days, I think how similar are meanings of the words sustainability as a kind of, you know, etymology of the word, and establishment. And on one side, sustainability is supposed to give us like some good meaning, and establishment is not exactly a good meaning in this sense. But for me, they often go kind of hand in hand. And I think that's why I tend to look more into the regenerative side of the, you know, spectrum, because to me, sustainability sometimes sounds like we just look for ways how to do things the old way, not in the terms of like I don't know, pollute and we create the emissions, but we kind of keep the, you know, economic system working the same way. That's why we have like all this big, you know, corporations, hotels, and you know, tour operators, you all know them, who say they are sustainable and all these things. So me, who works on the very kind of like what you call grassroots level, I really look into empowering really local people in this sense, like as local as it can be, just like a farm in the middle of Estonia, and bring them on this stage of actually creating, you know, it's not even a better place, but kind of ecosystem in their place, which creates more resilient future. So I try to avoid using the word sustainability, but I think that what we do right now is a lot about creating resilience and rehealing at the same time. I'm sorry. I hope I answered the question. It was a long story. But what do you think, Victor?
Yeah, so it's on the one hand, I'm really trying to avoid to pin down what is the definition of regeneration, because then you end up in the how many angels fit on the head of a pin, and it's like, if your definition is not exactly like mine, then you know we can't be friends. I am much more interested in, do we have a rough general consensus of what we want to create, and then let's just find a small thing to work on together. And that's the core philosophy of the Gathering of Tribes. It comes from my gut feeling, but now we have great theoretical basis in it through the work of David Snowden and Complexity. And he says, don't search for grand narratives, big definitions, just find one small thing to work on together. let's write a blog together about what does regeneration mean to each of us, just the smallest thing. And as you focus on doing things together, you move forward. So I try and avoid the big, but it's fun to play. So my playful answer is regeneration means to keep on asking the question, what is regeneration? And it's a kind of a koan, but I do mean it seriously in the sense that I don't believe regeneration can be turned into like, here's the 10 principles, you follow the 10 principles, 10 commandments, you're done. Because it changed. A key thing about regeneration is that it's about the place, the time, the reality of what can be done here and now. I think sustainability, and people who are philosophically in sustainability will argue that sustainability is the same thing as regeneration, but in practice, it's become a search for technological solutions to problems in the world. And I think regeneration is much more holistic in that it includes the human systems. It's not just how does our, the kind of widgets that our company makes, or whether we take an electric car or a gasoline car. It's what are the relationships between the people? How do we build a team? Are we burning people out? Tesla is a great example. Yay, green energy company. They fire people, they burn people out. It's a toxic environment. That's not regenerative. If you're creating, it doesn't matter how green their cars might be. If you're consistently burning out and turning the workers or whoever's life into misery, that's not regenerative. So regeneration looks much more holistically at the team, the people, as well as the bigger ecosystem and the planet. Which doesn't mean that we all have to think of how am I saving the world, but if I'm doing something, if I have, and every organization has learnings, and I think Travelhood is part of that, how can I share just a little bit of what I'm learning, put it out there, write a blog about, I tried this thing and it completely failed, put it out there into the world, because that builds the ecosystem of people and it helps others.
Hmm. I wanted to add just briefly to what you just said. For me, how I see the difference between these two is that sustainability I see as a, top-down movement. So somebody on top creates some standards and, people on the grassroots level supposed to follow that standards. At the same time, the regeneration movement I see as a local movement. So it's like kind of, different realms in this sense. One is global, while another is local. And for me, regeneration is more like a tree that grows from a seed instead of, being put, how do you call this, trees, just like you just put it into the ground and so it grows. So you grow thing from the seed, but then it creates the whole thing by itself and it affects the whole ecosystem around.
Yeah, I think regeneration is at all levels. So I think of it as growing a forest, and you plant the trees and then they interconnect, the mycelium comes. So
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe somebody else has a question. Maybe somebody would like to speak. Unmute yourself and somebody, please.
I've just put a very long text
Okay.
on the chat. It's hard to explain regeneration, truly, because it is a complex thing, because it follows living systems. So our living systems are complex. So but basically we are saying, yes, sustainability is a very good effort, and we're not saying that sustainability is not valid. So we embrace sustainability, but we have to take it to another level, more the living systems level, where man is not, or the human being doesn't go on top of nature, but is part of it. So the human being realizes that we are nature, and we need to act as nature. So we go more to, working towards, we are the service of life, basically. So we're moving towards this seva. So it's the three horizons. We have the traditional, the conservative, more say, that started in Industrial Revolution. Then we moved towards the eco, trying to do things better. And now we're moving towards this horizon. But it's a transition. So we're going to be moving towards these two horizons, the sustainability, the regeneration, until we understand that it's a complete mindset shift, regeneration. So, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
And let me
I
move.
also,
Sorry, please.
oh, okay. I just wanted to add something that I even heard today about sustainability in tourism, especially how are we involving the communities? Like, if it is a mind shift thing, is it a mind shift for all the stakeholders, or it's just for the travelers and the business owners in tourism, or is it a whole thing? Like, for example, I can give an example of where a hotel decided to not to wash the beddings, to change the beddings for a couple of days when they were holding the conference. And then they they communicated that to the travelers or to the conference attendees, but they never communicated to the workers as to why they were doing that. And so one of the travelers engaged one of the workers and was like, "You must be happy the hotel is full." And then she was like, "I'm not happy because these travelers or the conference attendees, they have denied my colleagues a job opportunity, because now the hotel is saving on money while the community is suffering, but they are communicating the sustainability agenda while not putting into consideration the many jobs that are lost as they drive the sustainability agenda."
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Thank you for sharing, Phoebe. It is often like that. It's like unintended consequences, we expect like empowerment, but we get monopolization and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example. And I think for me that connects to the idea of like regeneration is really thinking ecosystemically. So there is the ecosystem, there is the workers, and it's not just this, and then, and there's a whole ecosystem around that. And I think maybe that in some ways connects to the question Furquan wrote on how do we bring the visionary, amazing ideas to a traditional environment. And I think for me, at least the way I believe and what we're trying to do with the gathering is to understand that there's many languages and you need to solve the real problems. It's not about solving some abstract problems towards a grand future, but it's about solving real problems that people have and speaking to them in a language that makes sense to them. So for example, I had a great conversation with an amazing woman who's doing work on soil health in Poland. She has 60,000 farmers in her group and all of this. And she says, I don't talk to them about regeneration. I talk to them about preserving livelihoods and taking care of the soil. And she says, yeah, with you, I can talk and it's this grand vision and all of this, but they don't care. I'm helping them solve real problems that they have now. So I think that's the answer, Furquan, is to have the big vision in mind, but speak to people in their language and solve the problems that they have.
Let me bring up the question that I have on my mind as the consequence of what we are talking about is why regenerative travel, and why, what is the place of regenerative travel in this overall general, ecosystem?
Who would like to hop in?
Well, maybe like I can answer. I can continue just
No, but
expanding my thought.
Gurukhan said repeat
Yeah.
the question. So if I understand
Repeat the question.
you asked, how does travel and tourism fit into the regenerative ecosystem as a whole?
Yeah, what does it even mean in this sense, regenerative travel, right?
Sorry, I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I'm just trying to talk. So, yeah, basically, the tourism industry, we used to call it, right? So it used to be a separate thing, something that had an energy on its own, but it wasn't actually integrated into a vision, into a community agreement and based on the place. So regenerative travel is really important because tourism has so many negative impacts and can potentially have so many negative impacts that if it's not done in that way, with that mindset, with that paradigm, then we're going towards, disaster. So it has to be integrated into an overall paradigm, into this overall strategy, that is regeneration. But it's for me, sometimes it's, you get regenerative travel, which means I think it's more focused on travelers, and people think that is volunteering, something like this, which is not really what regeneration is about. But then is there regenerative tourism, which I think is I work more towards, which is more to work with the industry, say, and with destinations and with communities. And because the regenerative travel doesn't exist if the community haven't had these conversations about what they want, regarding their destination, et cetera, et cetera. If the community is not empowered, is not participating, then regenerative travel doesn't exist.
Thank you for sharing.
Furukwan wanted to speak next, I believe. He said his internet is not great, but
hi everyone. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Yeah, regenerative idea. This is like a new concept for me. I have heard about sustainable tourism, and it's pretty common nowadays. It's a buzzword. So I would like to share my experience being in a third world country. That recently we had a Travelhood Camp. It's a new concept here in the. I live in an area which is bordering Afghanistan, so it's a very traditional society. So, for example, if I've heard the conversation, and regenerative strikes to me as a lofty ideal, a visionary idea. But in my mind, shunning small things like we were offered to have a bonfire on a networking session which had some musical aspect even after the climate change camp successful completion. So I said no to that. I said no to the plastic bottles. I talked to the hotel staff. So how should we go about it, and bring some things that have like we should avoid plastic in favor of other sustainable things. So these are the small steps that I've started to do, and in a third world country, I believe that some ideas like that could be integrated incrementally, and then we go for the bigger, higher ideas. So that would be my response to the regenerative debate right now.
Thank you for sharing too. I thought to share as well this thing. I don't know, I hope it's gonna be visible. So I have this big farm in the middle of nowhere, and they do not participate in tourism at all. So there is no sustainable tourism, that there is no tourism, and they just alienated basically from the they are outside of the modern tourism industry, at the same time, being here, it's a remarkable experience. It is literally like living a different life. It is an opportunity to, you know, be a little bit of a farmer and understand the farmer's life. And for me, why I'm excited about this very local things is that when people come with this intention, not as a kind of consume, give me, but when they come to have a temporary transformation into something that they can't have. This is the place of my wife's grandparents, so that's why I'm here. And she doesn't understand. She says, why it's interesting, why somebody would come here? Who would come here? It's like so ordinary. And I'm like, well, think about people, for example, from Mexico or from India who live in completely different environment, and then show them like this, and this is abundance, and this is peace. And all my, for example, Indian group mates from my university, they love Estonia because there's no people. So in this sense, it is something different, and at the same time it empowers people like these farmers with, on one side, just extra income, right? And their life is hard, but it also connects them to, you know, worlds that they never seen, to people from all the different countries and these bright minds who are curious enough to come into the Estonian middle of nowhere and spend a week here. And to finish the thought, why I'm also excited about the farm, because my inspiration about regeneration actually came from permaculture and from, you know, agriculture in this sense, agricultural transformation. Like how you can make this farm not into, you know, like yet another Airbnb or like some sort of plastic Disneyland, right? But how can it be embedded into their, you know, life ecosystem? How can it help them to create, you know, more healthy environment around them? So something like that. That's why regenerative travel exists for me, and that's such a big difference with the discussion about sustainability.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been thinking about this, and I think another way of looking at tourism or travel, it's about experiences, right? Really, the place, going to another place is just an excuse to have a certain kind of experience. So in many ways, it's because, yes, some people go to retreats and things like this, but it's still a minority, but everybody travels. So hospitality, travel, tourism has a much bigger range than retreats and things like this. So there's a huge opportunity to create experiences which let people live in a regenerative way, whatever that means, but live in a more regenerative way for a few days, for a week. What does it mean to live talking with the local people without plastic, having conversations around the campfire every day, whatever regenerative might mean. So the opportunity to create experiences is there. And I think it's starting, you know, there's Unplugged. Have you heard of Unplugged? Alex, have you heard of Unplugged?
I did.
They make these cabins and you go, it's just like a simple cabin somewhere, but they take your phone away. You don't have your phone. I mean, you lock your phone. You don't have access to your phone, right? It's an experience of how do you regenerate and live without this digital sphere for a few days. So the opportunity to create different, and a lot of travel has been geared towards like consumption, buy more stuff, travel, towers washed every day, that kind of a thing. But it could be the complete opposite way, right? It could be experiences that are much more deeper, much more meaningful in the other direction.
Can I add something?
Please, please.
Hi, everybody. I was just thinking more about what regenerative regenerative tourism is for me. And it's funny, I just come out at the where, you know, tourism is in a way can serve this goal that we might all in our little bigger corners of the world have to contribute to a more regenerative society as a whole. And then to ask, how does tourism, you know, fit into that? How can that, what kind of programs actually would, for instance, connect to watershed regeneration, or to, in the rural context, contributing to local pride, which is an issue. I live in the interior of Portugal, and a lot of people are leaving, don't see enough opportunities, or, you know, have an idea of their rural identity that they don't find too cool. Or so there is I really think that for me, I just try to work towards developing and supporting tourist activities, or let's say activities that tourists can also join, that are in service in a way of these local challenges when it comes to economy, identity, ecosystem restoration, you know, on all levels. So that's what I would want to contribute to that.
That makes a lot of sense.
Thank you very much. If I might just jump in and give a couple of examples. There's a wonderful podcast called Good Awaits, and they give a lot of examples. There are probably, I don't know, 24, 25 episodes, and most of them are really examples of very small community-based projects where the visitors help fund needs of the local communities. And they're very concrete examples, and it goes against some of the things I've been reading in the last few days, where people have been criticizing regenerative tourism as an elitist luxury, you know, that it's just very expensive and just luxury and for very wealthy people. And it's, for me, the heart of regenerative anything is healing communities, people, the planet, as opposed to sustainability, which just limits the damage we do. But it's too late to limit the damage. The damage is done. The damage is enormous. And we need to take a much bigger step forward by starting to heal the local resources, the people, the communities, and connect people. And this visitor host connection in a mutually understanding, respectful way, to me, is at the heart of regenerative anything, whether it's agriculture, tourism, business. It's, so I just wanted to, I've put in a link to the Good Awaits podcast in the chat, and they're all small examples in New Zealand. Well, not small, but they're all examples of community-based and driven projects that help fund local. For example, one very small example is that there's a waka organization. Waka are canoes, these traditional Maori canoes, and there's a waka company that offers trips on these multi-person canoes, and they charge a little bit extra from overseas visitors so that they can help fund the local youth teams for these canoes to go and participate in competitions. So it's the external visitors, as it were, are helping fund local initiatives. And to me, that's a good example of how regenerative tourism can contribute and participate and nourish, nourishing and flourishing and thriving communities. So.
Beautiful.
Thank you for sharing. So, Victor, let's wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all very much for sharing. So this is exactly the kind of energy and conversations that we will have, but in person, and
And
going
for 5 days.
and out of this spinning out into how we can collaborate and what can we do out of this together. So yeah, thank you all for joining. I think we have your emails if you signed up through Luma, or I will, for the last time, put in whoever wants to share through the form. And yeah, I hope to see you in September and hope you join Travelhood. Alexander, do you have a link for Travelhood for people to open?
Yeah, I'm gonna also put it in the chat.
Yeah,
So
put it in the chat, please.
my closing remarks, just for 30 seconds. It would be great to see you all in Portugal. If you can't make it to Portugal, let's just stay in touch, and we have more events of Travelhood coming for the World Tourism Day and for all the other types of reasons. And also, just help us to spread the word, because all we do is create a space for communication and for learning from each other in this sense. So it always starts from the community, like we as organizers can push as much as we can, but people would be like, well, they just make money on that. Well, they just have commercial interest or something. Always a community, especially regenerative community, always starts from people. And I will be super happy to keep in touch with you. And I'm gonna put the link in the chat.